So, you want to be a game writer? Cool. I think sometimes people are genuinely surprised when I say this, as if they're expecting me to be gatekeepy or like to try to tell them it's a stupid idea. Sorry, but you're not going to get that from me. And quite frankly, I experienced a fair amount of that when first getting into the industry myself. People would be like, "You don't actually want to be a game writer. You don't understand what you're asking for." Or like one woman literally told me, "Don't." Okay. Sounds like something you should personally work on your own time, but okay. I won't lie to you that becoming a game writer is difficult. These days, especially, but there's many tangible things you can do to help set yourself up for success. And I won't lie, it's a lot of work just to get the job, and then it's a lot of work to stay in the job, but I know I wouldn't want to do anything else. And for those of you who don't know me, hi, I'm Anna. I'm a freelance writer and narrative designer for video games. I've written for everyone from Nintendo to Netflix, and I've been doing this for over 5 years now, and even won some awards for it, which has been pretty cool. In the past few years, I've started doing portfolio reviews for up-and-coming writers as a way to give back, and I find myself giving a lot of the same advice. So I figured, why not record a video about it? So if you're interested in becoming a game writer, you might have heard that you need to put together a portfolio. A portfolio is a fancy way of saying a short collection of samples of your work to give people a taste of what your skill and style is like. The term portfolio actually comes all the way to us from Renaissance Italy. Back in the day, when books weren't mass-produced, a person could ask for a book to be made in a variety of sizes. A folio was considered to be a book of medium size. Think a piece of paper folded over hamburger style to form a book. This gave an economical, but still decently sized amount of paper to show off your work. This is opposed to a quarto or even an octavo. Basically, the less paper a book required, the cheaper it was to make. I had to put this little bit in the video because I was an English major and I don't want to feel like my degree was totally worthless. Anyway, artists would carry around their folios of their designs in order to showcase their skills to potential patrons, hence portfolio. And while our portfolios today are in a different format, the intent and functionality is virtually the same. It's a bite-sized peek at your overall skill and style for a potential employer. And it turns out visual artists aren't the only people who need one. Game writers do too. You can't really get hired without it. But if the thought of making a portfolio out of your writing makes you nauseous, not to worry, okay? I got you. My goal with this video is to give you an actionable set of steps or things to consider so you feel empowered, not overwhelmed, by the concept of making a portfolio. Because ultimately, they're really important. It's kind of corny, but it's a little shocking how much have fun and be yourself is applicable advice for a career in writing. And this is definitely one of those times. Don't be afraid to let your personality shine in your samples. Find what you do best and really put it out there. Becoming a writer is honestly such a cool journey of play and self-discovery. So don't be afraid of doing just that. Okay, let's get into it. There's a lot of different methods for making a portfolio. Everyone has their strategies and rationale, and this one is mine. However, in general, it's best practice, regardless of strategy, to have your portfolio be 3 to 5 really solid pieces that are each pretty short in length. If you're like, wait, Anna, are you sure that's enough? Yes. Recruiters and lead writers are really busy people and need to be able to evaluate your materials pretty quickly. So 3 to 5 pieces is definitely enough. So here's where we get into my personal portfolio strat. So from this point, please feel free to take what works for you and leave what doesn't, okay? I like to refer to my strategy as the Swiss Army knife approach. Now, what makes a portfolio a Swiss Army knife comes down to one word: variety. As game writers, we have to be able to write in a lot of different settings and styles and retain quality and personal voice throughout all of them. To achieve this, make sure your samples are in different genres and settings. And maybe you've got a more sci-fi one, or one that's more of a historical fiction vibe, or maybe another that's high fantasy if you're into that sort of thing. Maybe you've got another one that's just realism and set in present day. It can really be any combination of settings that you like. It's just the variety on aggregate that's important. Being able to adapt your writing to a variety of settings is a skill, and one that we really need to showcase as a game writer looking for work. Think about common settings that have been used in video games and see if there's any you think you could do a great job at, or if you have a pre-existing sample, that would be a good match. The second way your portfolio can achieve Swiss Army knife status is showing a variety of formats. Unlike a lot of other disciplines, game writing doesn't really have a typical program we use like Maya or Wise, so we have to be able to do our job in a variety of modes. I'll go through some of the most common ones using examples from my own portfolio to show you what I mean. The spreadsheet. This one is the simplest, cleanest, most basic applications of dialogue. This one showcases work that I wrote on a game called The Foglands. In this roguelike, the stranger is a character that allows you to purchase abilities. After each death, he comments on how the player, a man named Jim, just died. You can see here that there's a conversation name, and a little description to provide context on the dev side. Then there's a speaker column to indicate which character is talking, any parenthetical information for the voice actor, in this case, the incomparable Gianni Montegrano, and then a column for the actual text of the spoken line. Don't worry about the line ID column on the right here. That's just because this had voice recording attached. So that line ID tells the engine which voice file to play. If you're writing up a spreadsheet just for your portfolio and not using something from a ship title, don't even worry about this. Combat barks and item descriptions are common examples of something you might want to consider putting in a spreadsheet in your portfolio, especially if you're just starting out. No matter if you're junior or senior, you will never escape bark hell. But don't be afraid to experiment with the sort of dialogue you put in your spreadsheet. You could even go full RPG dialogue tree if you wanted. Your options here are pretty endless. The screenplay. Especially when it comes to AAA companies, a screenplay sample is a must. These are often used for writing cinematics or cutscenes in a video game, but can ultimately be used throughout the entire development cycle depending on the studio. Luckily enough, our cousins over in film and TV have lots of examples of screenplays you can find for free online, so you can Google around and familiarize yourself with the format if you haven't already. Now, this particular format does require specialized software a lot of the time. Final Draft, Fade-In, and Celtex are often what folks in the industry use. But don't worry, there's tons of free alternatives out there if you're an open source preferred girly like me. Yumi Script and Writer Duet are free, and some even offer Google Drive integration. Although I also believe Celtex offers a free subscription for students, but don't quote me on that. If you feel like you need a sample in your portfolio to be a little bit more on the dramatic side, consider making it your screenplay. It's best to keep these particular samples to around 5 pages max, as they can get quite lengthy. And remember, recruiters and lead writers are busy people, as are you. A playable. If you haven't shipped any titles professionally yet, something like this is absolutely paramount. If you've gotten this far into the video and you think that game writers don't actually have to have any technical chops, here's where I'm afraid I have to burst your bubble. Sure, we don't have to necessarily be dropping C++ into the engine, but we still need to be able to juggle variables and branches without breaking a sweat. Making a small text-based game is often the go-to. Twine is a perfect example of a free program that allows you to make a branching game experience based on just clicking highlighted text. It's also pretty easy to learn, and just uses a basic markup and CSS that's pretty easy to get a handle on. There's tons of guidance out there on how to make something like this, and it's really important to show a potential employer that you have a functional understanding of how these basic node-based text editors work, as a lot of studios use them in some capacity. Making small, let me say that again, a small game with a program like Twine or Bitsy and putting it in your portfolio shows that you can take an idea from concept to ship and shows how you can implement your own work. This is, and I cannot stress this enough, huge. Definitely prioritize this, but you got this. A regular old Word document. Yeah, you heard me. Sometimes a Word document is the best option. This can be for a variety of reasons. Writing documentation like a character sheet, as shown here from my own portfolio, made as part of a writing exercise at a previous employer, or even writing node-based branching dialogue from a playable format like Twine into a typical Word document. Sometimes simplest really is best. So in summation, the Swiss Army knife method is 3 to 5 samples, encompassing a variety of styles and a variety of formats. When gathering samples, take a look at any you might already have written and see what boxes they tick, and look for any holes, such as, I don't have a sci-fi sample, or I don't have a screenplay. Then you can write a bespoke sample that can help fill those gaps. Regardless of what format, setting, or style you go with, make sure all of these samples, with the exception of a playable, are in PDF format. PDFs are considered universal, so anyone using any operating system all over the world can open your document and see exactly what you want them to see. As for hosting, you can create a zipped file of all your samples that you can upload to websites or attach to emails in order to send a singular file of slightly smaller size. It also makes it easy to upload and download from your personal website or Linktree, wherever you host your information. By the way, if you don't have a personal website yet, you should totally get on that. There's a whole bit in my Freelancing 101 video about it, so you can go check that out if you like. Or you can do what I do. I have a specific folder on my Google Drive that's related to my portfolio. I like this method because I can just link people to the entire folder with a press of a button, and I can swap out samples as I feel my style grow and change or as I ship new titles. Just make sure that regardless of if it's a zip or digitally hosted, make it easy to find. Slap it front and center on your website. Make it a giant button. Make your materials easy to find. You'll be shocked how many people miss out on opportunities just because their samples are hidden or embedded weirdly within their website. Make it easy for an employer to see your work and contact you. Okay, so let's cover some other FAQs I've gotten when I've done student portfolio reviews. Unfortunately, prose or long form writing like a chapter of a book just isn't applicable for a game writing portfolio. I'm so sorry. You can put it in there, but I'd be honest, I don't think anyone would really look at it since it just isn't really applicable for what we do in our jobs, despite it also being writing. I'd really focus on using some other format instead. I'm really sorry. I know this breaks some hearts. Another question I get asked a lot is fan fiction. And to be totally truthful, people are split on this. But for me personally, and a lot of other writers I know, as long as it's in one of the relevant formats, fan fiction totally above board. In fact, you can even get super fancy and call it spec or speculative fiction to make it sound even more legit. Honestly, remember the screenwriting sample I showed you earlier? Yeah, it's my favorite sample in my entire portfolio, and it's Resident Evil spec. It's literally my favorite sample in there, and I routinely get complimented on it. Fanfic shows that you can write in an established character's voice and world space, which is a genuine skill for what game writers often have to do, especially if you're writing on a greater IP or in transmedia ventures. And most importantly, getting reviews is important. Some professional game writers offer reviews, but it's important to reach out only if you see them talking about it online. We're quite frankly already overworked and underpaid, so if someone declines a portfolio review from you, please don't take it personally. Some events like GDC will also offer portfolio reviews and mentorship cafes if you're able to attend, so you can bring a copy of your portfolio and get a review there. You can also offer to do portfolio review exchanges with one of your fellow game writers. I do this a lot these days with my fellow seniors because, yeah, once you have a portfolio, congratulations! You are now Sisyphus. You are always going to be updating and reviewing that thing. But I hope that this was at least helpful, that you feel like you know where you're pushing that boulder up that hill, rather than just, I know I should probably be pushing that boulder up that hill. I'm not really sure how. If you're able to tackle a portfolio, that is a huge first step in beginning your career as a game writer. So give yourself a little bit of credit. You've totally got this. Feel free to leave any questions in the comments below and I'll try to get to them, or one of your fellow YouTubers can try to get to them. And of course, if you found this helpful, you can check out my Freelancing 101 video and maybe even like and subscribe as a treat. That would be cool. Have fun working on those portfolios. Bye!